Hi, I'm Richie Mackay.
And I'm Davey Bolt, and you are listening to the Wrong Bias Podcast. And on our first show of 2020, with the upcoming Indoor World Championships, we've took the opportunity to speak to Dom Picksley. Dom has been instrumental in providing reports for the WBT World Championships for many years, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to have a chat with him, ask him a few questions about the WBT and what changes he's seen over the years. We're also going to be having a great chat with Craig Burgess from the Short Mat Players Tour, which is a different format of our sport, and we thought it would be great to not just talk about the long game indoors or outdoors all the time, but to actually hear what the Short Mat Player Tour is all about, how many people actually play it, and I think a lot of people will be surprised that it's not just something that you will play in a community centre. Craig will also be taking on my 7-Up questions. Richie will be providing his New Year roundup, and we will also be discussing our Christmas clothing poll, which came up with some very surprising results. And we'll also have our regular competition supported by Alex Marshall Sports.
Right, mate, here we are again. Happy as can be. 2020, first one of the year.
Yep, number 6 this one as well.
Number 6, mate. Now, I've read on Tinternet, so it's got to be right, that any new podcast struggles to get past 7.
Oh dear. No pressure there.
So, as we are now on 6, mate, is this our swan song?
Yeah. Would like to thank all of our listeners.
We'll take the prizes and run, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
Yeah. And speaking of the prizes, speaking of the competition, the guesses that we had for the last competition, how are people? How are they? I did drop a hint of 200 to 250. We then dropped another hint of 2,000 for the 5 podcasts. So for all, we were absolutely delighted to get guesses of 7,000, 2,500, which would have put us up there with Freddie Flintoff.
Yeah. I would have certainly been writing to BBC Radio 1, I think, and seeing if I could get a job there for. I think it ranged some of the top end ones. I think we had 10,000 was one as well, but I think the day we get 10,000, so yeah, probably passed away.
I think we'll be on BBC iPlayer, mate.
Absolutely.
I think it was staggering, funny.
Was funny.
Thanks for entering. That was the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a really, really good response to that competition. So thank you very much for everybody who took part. Just before we move on, I would like to just say I really, really hope those people out in Australia, the things that's happening over there with these fires is just absolutely, it's horrendous to watch. And I've already seen that there's been a couple of bowling clubs actually burnt down over there. So just to basically just pass on, if there's any of the bowling fraternity, I know we're not ignoring everybody out there, but anybody who has been affected by the fires, I wish you all safety and hope the rains come very, very shortly and get those fires put out.
There we are. And now we catch up with Dom Picksley.
Hello.
Hello, Dom. How are you doing?
Hi, Dave. Not bad, thanks. You?
Yeah, not too bad at all, thanks. Thank you for coming on to the Wrong Bias podcast. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. I'm looking forward to it. It's really appreciate you've asked me, so it's really good.
No, that's no problem at all, Dom. We just thought it was an ideal opportunity with the upcoming Indoor World Championship. You've reported on the championships for quite a lot of years, so just thought it would be a great... Yeah, I thought it would be a great opportunity just to give us an understanding of how long you've actually done that, and obviously what you've seen over the years of actually reporting on the WBT, and then we'll ask you a few little predictions for this year's competition as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, fine, not a problem.
So when did you actually start reporting on the WBT World Championship, Dom?
It's a few years ago now, because I used to do a little bit for Racing Post many years ago. Regularly used to write pieces for them every day during the championships. I mean, it's going back, I can remember Billy Jackson winning in 2009, so it must be going on for 10, 12 years now. I know, obviously, David Rees-Jones, who was always the main writer, I've sort of come up through his shadows, really, and sort of taken the lead. Now he's sort of retired from the game. Well, he says he's retired, but he still sees his name popping
I do, yeah.
And so I don't know, 10 or 12 years now, but obviously I write for Bowls International, and I write for quite a lot of newspapers around the country trying to sort of promote the game, especially the World Indoors, because it's the flagship game of not bowls per se, but definitely the indoor bowls in this country. So, I try and do my best to try and get some publicity out there, and I always go down there for a few days at the end of the tournament.
That's exactly what I was just about to ask you there, Dom. I was just wondering whether you actually go down and put yourself in situ during the competition and report as you go.
Yeah, I do. I always go down there because obviously I work full time, so I can't spend 2.5 weeks down there, which would be great. But I always go down for the last few days of the final week, which encompasses, the business end of the singles and the women's final. So I managed to get all those games in at the end, so I can get the quotes and things like that. So I'm always there for the last few days, 3 or 4 days of the tournaments on there in person. Yeah, so it's really good to get well fed and watch some good polls.
Yeah, you certainly get well fed down there. I know that.
Yeah.
So, with regards to the championships that have taken over the years from the ones that you've seen, could put you on a spot here. What changes have you seen, and what would you like to see potentially in the future for the World Championships?
Obviously, the balls has changed over the years with the introduction of the portable blue ring and the different coloured balls just to try and sort of bring it into the 21st century. The stop clock, that's been a big introduction as well. Obviously speeding up the matches, which is a really good idea because you don't want players deliberating over shots for nigh on 5-10 minutes. And but one thing I would like to see, I want to be more of a world championship because it's very much like it's not, but it feels like a British Championships at the time because obviously since 1993 there's been an English, Scots or a Welsh winner every year, and this year it feels a bit more like a World Championship because there's a few Aussies, a couple of New Zealanders, American, Canadians, but you get the impression it needs more players from around the world to be in it to make it feel more like a World Championship. When you can't doubt the top players' abilities because they are the best players in the world who just happen to be from Britain. So you're not much you can do about that, but sometimes you feel like it should be opened up to the world a bit more. So, a few more from down under, South Africa, across. There's a lot of countries who play bowls now. It'd be nice to see a bit more of a world sort of field flavour to it.
I completely agree.
That's a major change I'm making.
I do agree, and what I'm going to do in a second is actually pass you over to Richie on this one because I know he's got a question that's relating to that. From my own point of view, I like the fact that there are players from certain countries that are playing in the championships, and I do agree that everybody should have the chance to be in there. I just feel that you look at, I know we're not as big as the snooker championships and things like that in the darts, but I just feel sometimes that it's more of a token gesture rather than be a world championship, which I think personally I feel that it maybe just undermines the quality of the competition sometimes, and I don't mean that in a bad way in any shape or form, because I think it's great to see some of the players from some of our unrecognised countries taking part, but I just feel that you wouldn't see somebody going into a snooker table in the World Championships and the equivalent of not being able to hit a break of 10 or a break of 15, if you know what I mean. And this is the equivalent of some of the players who really, really struggle on that surface and potentially can't put a ball within a yard or 2 yards sometimes. And I just feel, although it's got its great points that it's advertising players from around the world, I sometimes think it also is a detriment to the tournament as well, because it doesn't make it look like the top players in the world. It makes it look like just a potential open competition in some respects. But on that note, Dom, I'll pop you over to Richie on that one because he has got a question relating to what you were talking about there.
Hi Dom, you all right?
Hi Richie, hi.
Yeah, good mate. Do you think we'll ever see another Ian Schuback win? It's 28 years. And a backup question to that one would be, do you think the reluctance of the Australians to come over is down to the cost, maybe, of coming over? Or has the tournament actually hasn't got the same appeal over that side of the equator to what it has over here?
I agree. The cost is very prohibitive for a lot of the players from the other side of the world, because you look at how much it costs for flights. I know they get accommodation paid for, and something subsidised by the PBA and by their own PBAs. I know when I'm speaking to Australians, New Zealanders, Canadians, Americans, and you ask them how much it costs, they have to take 2 or 3 weeks off work. Obviously that might cost them wages. Then it's the flights, how much they cost, and all the general living, and so it is very cost prohibitive for those on the other side of the world. Yeah. But then again, it's difficult, isn't it? Because then, like David was touching on, the fact that because it's a portable rink, they have a massive disadvantage. So you could feel that this could then put these players off, knowing that, well, I'm a good player, but when I get onto that portable rink, I'm a bit of a novice.
Yeah.
Makes me look not quite as good as I actually am. So yeah, when you look at world bowls, especially the outdoor competitions, they're dominated by the Australians, New Zealanders. Likes of Shannon McElroy. Obviously he's one of the top bowlers. You get all the Aussies who are the top bowlers, South Africans, and obviously the British are as well. The likes of Alex Marshalls and Paul Fosters. But as David said, it's not really a level playing field when they get to the World Indoors, because it's more like the World Portable Rink Championships, really, rather than if we resorted back to just a normal indoor surface, like strip away the portable rink and let them just play on the actual rink at Potters. That would be a more of a level playing field, and then it would bring up these players from around the world to sort of make them all more equal for those who are sort of experienced on the rink. Look at the top 16, and half of them have been there since the year dot sort of thing. How many years experience they've got. Every time they play on it, it builds up their experience, and you get some players who are really good from Australia coming over, and they may have only played it once or twice, and they have a massive disadvantage. And I think that probably does put them off. Why should I spend all that much money going across the UK, playing in a great tournament, but the chance I'm probably going to get knocked out in the first or second round, and do I really want that? I could sort of play in tournaments in Australia and win the equivalent. They have big money, big pots over there as well.
Yeah, I suppose
they could play like a regional championship and win and earn a lot more money. And yeah, so I think it probably does lose its appeal a little bit. Yeah.
I suppose it's a long way to come for what inevitably could be an hour's bowls, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And for those chaps from some of your Canadas and USA, Hong Kong, who come all this way just to play on the bowlers bar rink.
That's right. Yeah.
And then they get knocked out without even making the international arena. That must be a kick in the solar plexus for them as well, to come all that way and not even to tread on the hallowed sort of rink of Potters. Yeah. So I can see why maybe. I know the numbers in America and Canada have been way down on previous years. They literally get a handful of qualifiers, in the World Indoor Qualifying event. And you really think this is the event where they all should be entering. But when you get about 6 players turning up to potentially play in the World Championship, something's not quite right somewhere.
Yeah. And just reverting back to what Richie said about, obviously, will there be another Ian Schuback? I think, obviously, what he was pointing to there was is there going to be another overseas winner at any point in the future, do you think? Or do you think those restrictions that they do find when they come over is not going to help?
Yeah, Ian Schuback in '92, wasn't he? He was the last, I think, has he been the only overseas winner, hasn't he, at the World Indoor Singles?
The men's, yeah.
I know there's been... There's been ladies who've won the women's version, but the main one itself, Kelvin Kirko, he was sort of closest, wasn't he, a few years back? He was regularly in the top 16, and because there's barely any tournaments, 2 tournaments now, there's just not the opportunity there to accrue ranking points in order to get into the top 16.
Absolutely.
And to get that regular experience. And when there are return events and they're held in the UK. It puts the Aussies and the New Zealanders at massive disadvantage, because it's the cost of travelling over, and I just can't see there being another Aussie.
Which is
like Schuback in many years now.
It's a real shame, in my opinion, and it boils back to the whole thing of I was relatively new to the game when Schuback won the World Championship, and he was sort of a bit of a character in the game, and he was well liked by a lot of people, and I think that is one major thing that's missing at the World Championships. We don't see enough different people to get people to actually tune into the TV, and I do think Schuback was quite a draw because he was a character, and he typical Aussie. He was quite brash at times as well, but an absolutely outstanding player. So for the fact that he came over here and did what he did is testimony to itself. But I think the sport needs somebody else, or a couple more people from around the world coming over here to actually attract people down to come and watch the championships, instead of just seeing what our class is the same old all of the time, which is...
Yeah, he had charisma, didn't he, Schuback?
He did, yeah.
Kelvin Kirko, again, he was another one who had charisma. Nothing against the players in the top 16. They're all great, great people, really nice chaps. But yeah, some of them, I must admit, some of them, if you had to be harsh, you'd say that someone do like a bit of charisma, which we should possibly need to promote the sport. But like you referred back to snooker and the likes of Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's massive charisma, isn't he? And everyone wants to. Whenever he plays, people tune in to watch him. And he needs a few characters. Yeah.
In a daft way, it needs a little bit of nasty in there. I mean, when people think about balls, they talk about Black Ball, the movie, and it was something like that actually gave the sport a bit of credence, and people actually talked about it, and it was a daft movie, but it got the game in the spotlight, and it
so
does.
We need another Griff Sanders, do we?
Griff Sanders, that's the guy, from Torquay, isn't it? And we're not asking people to be doing what he actually did to create that movie, but you just need somebody who just ruffles a few feathers, and in the nicest possible way. If you're a world champion like a Muhammad Ali, and he was going to tell you he was going to beat you in the second set 12-1, and put those comments out there before the start of the game, so that it gets people's backs up prior to the match starting, so that people are sitting there and wanting them to actually lose the game rather than win it for being so cocky.
Darts is a good one, because obviously you got Gerwyn Price likes to mix it up a bit, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, and it's
say a few things. And
you get the best of both sides, because some people say, well, love his passion for it. Other people turn around and call him every name under the sun. Who's the one who's getting his name plastered all over, and what sport is getting promoted because of it?
I suppose Les Gillett's possibly the nearest, because I know, was it last year, he made a few choice comments about other players not putting the hard yards in and drinking till all hours, and I know that got a few players backs up, but nothing was really made about that, and it sort of if it's some sort of national paper had got hold of that, or saying, fellow bowler slams his fellow bowlers about telling them this, calling them this, that, and the other, and that could have made a few headlines and got people interested, but no one seemed to latch onto that. And
absolutely,
and the chance was is gone. But as you say, it does need a few characters. And it's like when there's a few too many bowlers who get put off by a little noise in the crowd, and they put the ball on the ground and they huff and they turn around. And
absolutely, you
think, well, should get on with it, and don't be. If you're going to be distracted by the slightest little thing, you think, well, I know, some people do. I used to get distracted by things, but and think,
it's that age-old thing, though, Dom, isn't it? That if there is no noise at all, you are gonna hear everything, which is why I just feel it needs something more. It needs music, or it needs some sort of atmosphere where people are talking or doing whatever it is during the game. Because if it's happening and they're not moving, nobody's going to care. Because you're no different to playing a league game on a night time in your bowls club where there's a lot of talk, and it just needs a little bit. It needs something different. And
I know if you go up to the like the main stand, the higher stand of the two. Yes. If you go around the back of that and you walk up the steps to get to the top, I know when you're walking on that, every time the stairs creak, you go like, oh no, I'm going to put someone off, and you're walking on tip like on eggshells all the time, and you think, oh no, I'm going to put somebody off. And like you say, if the crowd was raucous, and like at a Wayne Wilgers match, when he plays, the crowd's a bit more raucous, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's a few youngsters in there, but I know because it's held at Potters, you get at that time of the year, you get a lot of pensioners turn up, and they support the venue well. They pay their money and they turn up. And the BBC don't help by picking out the old ladies who are knitting and all falling asleep. And that just reinforces the stereotype. But when you've got an average age of maybe 60 watching the match, it's not really raucous, like a bunch of 20-year-olds are.
No, that's it. But like I say, I mean, apart from that, they do a great job. It's great for the sport to actually get it on TV. Certainly can't take anything away from the WBT for what they do on that basis, because if it wasn't for them, we would have nothing on TV in the UK.
Absolutely. What about the YouTube as well, the YouTube stream service? I mean,
that's good as well. It is,
you can watch every match,
Absolutely, and it's. I think that needs to be maybe promoted a little bit more as well. But I would ideally like to see the BBC just give their heads a shake as well and stop cutting off the TV at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock on the dot, whenever it is, when the last ball of the tiebreaker is coming up to win the game. And there's if it was anything else, they would just say this show will start in 5 minutes' time as soon as the conclusion of this end. For some reason, the BBC just decided to just cut it off there and then, which is really frustrating to a lot of people. But
I think if it was Andy Murray in tennis, so they'd continue, wouldn't they?
Absolutely, of course they would. They wouldn't cut something off as such a major tournament like that, because that's how you keep your viewing figures. That's big games like that are going to promote the sport. But
and people there are interesting because, interestingly, today, on a side issue, I was just doing some bit of research for this, and I happened to come across the Guardian website, and they had a little article about things people would want to see more of in 2020 in our newspaper. And actually, World Indoor Bowls was one of the things that came up. The Guardian readers want more coverage of the World Indoor Bowls and less football in that newspaper. So hopefully, a few more people start banging the drum, and some of the newspapers might then take interest in it, might, add fuel to the sort of the fire of bowls, how good the sport actually is.
Absolutely, and I've always said I think there's still a massive market out there for some of the smaller scale sports, and I think we saw that in the London Olympics when there was so many people watching so many different varieties of things, and I did comment in something I wrote that I was sat there watching a horse dancing across some sand and was actually relatively into it and just trying to understand what it was all about, and I do think there is an audience out there for that.
And it would help bowls if it was at the Olympics, but that's a discussion for another day.
Absolutely. Well, Dom, just to finish off, we're going to put you right on the spot with this one, and we're going to ask you who you think is going to win this year's World Indoor Singles Championship.
Well, I'm going to stick my neck out and say it's going to be someone from England or Scotland. Yeah.
So I'll just push you off that fence there.
Yeah, well, splinters up my backside now, yeah.
If you get run off
2000
Jason...
was the last time there was was Robert Wheel, wasn't it? And I think since 1903 there's only been one non-English or Scottish winner, so I'm pretty safe to assume it's going to be an English or Scottish winner. And obviously Stuart Anderson, reigning champion, massively tough game in the first round.
I've just said exactly the same thing. Yeah, he's got a really tough one. Yeah,
Commonwealth World Indoor champion against a Commonwealth Games champion. That's could well be the actual match of the whole tournament.
I agree. Dan is a great player, and I think Stuart's got a right battle on there. I'll tell you, I think he's if there was going to be a shock in this year's championship, that would be the one I would potentially plump for. But if Stuart hits his straps, then
I don't know so much, because Stuart seems better when he's playing against better players early on, and he said to me that playing against someone he knows and is a good player focuses his mind more than if he was playing against some qualifier. And so I think maybe a shot might come in another match, and I can understand your perspective on that. But when you're looking down the draw, especially Simon Skelton, I mean, if he beats Colin Banks, he's got Stuart Anderson in the next round. It's a bit different from last year when he played him in the final.
Absolutely.
But we look at Colin Banks. He in the Lincoln qualifier, he beat Billy Jackson, he beat Wayne Wilgers, and he beat Kevin Rands, who qualified for the International Open, who obviously then played in the Scottish, and his lads just won the World Under 25s.
That's right.
So the Banks have got a great family too. Doesn't his daughter play?
She does, Carla Banks as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's going to be a shock, I'd have thought in that one, because obviously Simon lost in the first round. The Scottish too, and I mean he got a bit of a pig of a draw, Andy Thompson, but that could be the shock. But as to actual winners, I mean, I like Stuart Anderson's half of the draw, because you look at the bottom half. You've got Foster, Brett, Burnett, Dawes, Harlow, all in the bottom half. And all the top 16 players are very capable, but you look at the draw and you're thinking, well, he's possibly got Simon Scott in the second round. Should beat him, and Chesney or Paxton. I mean, Chesney's good on his day, but Paxton seems to have fallen away a little bit. And if he gets, he's got Alex Marshall in his draw. But I mean, Alex, it's been a long time since 2015 last one at Potters, and he's only won once there in the last 10 years or so. So it's looking good for Stuart Anderson. Repeat defence, but you can't look to him in the second half of the draw. Paul Foster's always going to be one of the favourites. He's such a great player. He won the Scottish. Players don't often win back-to-back titles, but Stuart Anderson did last year, so there's no reason why Paul Foster can't. And I think Greg Harlow's due a win. Been 10 years since he last won there, but I don't know. I sometimes think maybe he's a bit under pressure, because obviously his job's there and everyone supports him.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the pressure when it gets to him and he just can't quite get over the line, and always seems to find someone too good. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Stuart Anderson Paul Foster final, really. I mean, Nick Brett, he's come back to the boil again in Scotland. He did well. I think he's quite confident, so a good run from him. But then again, he faces Foster potentially in the quarter-final. So
yeah, there's potentially some great matches at some point, at certain points throughout the tournament. And I think, judging by that, I'm gonna pin you to Stuart Anderson, because I think that's.
I'll go Stuart Anderson. Yeah, I think he, especially with Daniel Salmon in the first round, that'll really focus his mind on the job.
Absolutely.
And if he gets past him, he'll probably lose now and go out in the first round. But I'll say Stuart Anderson to beat Foster in the final.
That's brilliant, Dom. Well, thank you so much for your time. Been great.
No problem at all.
It's been really informative having a chat about obviously what you've seen over the years. So thanks very much again. Hope you enjoy the podcast once it's broadcast, and hopefully you'll listen to the ones in the future as well. I'm sure we'll speak again.
I just say what a great podcast you two have put together. It's really good, and there's been nothing. I mean, there was a podcast with 2 or 3 Welsh, had 2 or 3 episodes, and it fell away. But I'm really, really impressed by what you two chaps are doing, and yeah, keep up the good work because it's
Cheers,
great. Really
Thank you very much. That's really appreciated. Thanks, Dom.
All right.
You take care. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Dave. Cheers, Richie.
Cheers, bye.
Bye now.
Cheers, bye-bye.
Right, and you can remember on the Boxing Day podcast, we put out a poll asking, are you allowed to wear Ball's manufactured clothing at your club, regardless of design or colour? And to say that we were surprised at the number that voted no was an understatement. I was expecting 10%, but we actually got 34%. 66% said yes.
Well, you actually said on the podcast, I may be proved completely wrong, because I don't think even in your wildest dreams you would have expected 34% of the poll to actually say that no, they weren't allowed to wear these bits and pieces of clothing, and it referred to people opening their presents at Christmas and getting something new. And I must admit, it even took me by surprise. I'm astounded that we have got, this is just a small poll that we've done, and to have so many clubs or so many people affected by such a petty and silly barrier for the sport, I was gobsmacked, to be honest with you. And I just really, really question what is wrong with the whole setup of this sport at the moment. I just think it's absolutely crazy in an era where we're losing so many players, not through, we've talked about it before, not through because the sport is dying because of the sport. It's just general wastage. People are getting older and we're in a new era. And if clubs can't see that we really, really need to be more flexible and open, the doors to a new audience of people and stop being so petty with regards to you've got colour in your top. I mean, come on. It's really just...
Some of the comments that we got, because we asked for comments on Facebook as well, and some of them were clubs need to move with the times, or young people will not want to be part of balls. You get moaned at. Some females still want to wear skirts, yet they're not allowed. People go to the pub, the gym, the club, a restaurant in clothing they feel happy and confident in. It's no different with our sport. Clubs who dictate what people can and cannot wear with strict out-of-date rules will inevitably lose members, and also it has to be predominantly white. It's just, and there was one that actually stands out at the top there. You mightn't have seen it on the next page, mate. Most clubs are relaxed with the dress code for club nights. The short mat players to allow anything except for jeans, and there's a sea of colour at all of their events. I know the sport's got bigger things to worry about. If we kind of get the easy things right.
I'm a little bit lost for words for it, because I really just don't get it. I don't see what the big issue of clothing on a bowling green is. It's like, who are they expecting to walk through the door that people are going to turn around and say, oh, I can't believe he's got colour on. I mean, come on. Everybody pays the membership. Everybody, is part of the club. It doesn't make any difference. Yes, we don't want to see people going on in jeans or things like that during league games, but crikey, there is nothing. There's some lovely stuff out there, and to be so petty and to hold the sport back the way a lot of clubs appear to be, holding it back. Again, this was just a small poll, so I don't even know what the scale of it is, but I just genuinely believe that committees in clubs really need to sit down now and start to say to themselves, why are we being so,
just move with the times, what I mean? It's sort of like you said, I can understand, you have your rules, white or grey is fair enough, okay, but to stop people from wearing branded shirts, that's supposed to be encouraging people into the sport, trying to encourage the younger element, the middle-aged element for that. It's just mind-blowing at times.
One person springs to mind in our club that a lot of people probably know, because he's been a very successful bowler, but Pat Brown joined our club this year. Now, obviously, we went through the whole change of clothing. We wear black trousers now. But Pat, anybody who's seen Pat on the circuit or in national championships, Pat is always, and she likes to wear a long skirt. She's always very, very tidy and proper, and she is, what you would class as what some of these clubs want to see people wearing. She always have a nice white blouse on, she'd have a grey skirt. She came to our club and there was a little bit of an issue initially, because she says, look, I don't wear trousers, so, I may not join because I can't wear black trousers or whatever it is. But within a 2-second phone call to the National Competition Secretary, we asked the question, would it be possible for Pat to wear a black skirt? Yes, absolutely no problem at all, because that's in line with your club colours. Pat loves wearing our new tops, so the fact that she's gone from wearing white blouses, she now loves wearing the Vipers top, but she's also now got a long black skirt and she feels comfortable playing that way. And just small adaptations here and there has literally gained us one member, because we could have lost her if we'd been so petty and says, no, you've got to wear this or you've got to wear that. And this is just a very, very small thing, which I think clubs just cannot continue to turn around and say, we're losing members, blah, 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 and
just not doing nothing about it.
They're not, and all they're doing is putting massive hurdles in the way.
It's an easy thing. It might be a minute thing in the sport again, but it's something to address.
Very surprising result, but let's see what happens in the future. That's all I can say.
You are listening to Wrong Bias Podcast.
Welcome to Richies Round Up. Cue the music. The Men's Denny Cup has reached the quarter-final stage, and there's still a chance of a repeat of last year's final. Holders Exonia, for the second year running, defeated Dorchester and will now play Clary Dunbar in the quarter-finals. Beaten finalists South Shields Vipers beat Gateshead and will now entertain Leicester. Ipswich will play St Neots and Wear Valley will play Victory. In the Denny Plate, last year's runners-up Blackpool Newton Hall are into the quarter-finals after defeating Selby. They now entertain Spalding. Norfolk will play Wellingborough, Mid-Gloss play Torbay, while the only other previous runner-up, Swale, entertain Oyster. In the Ladies Yetton Trophy, we still have 3 previous winners, last year's runners-up and last year's beaten semi-finalists complete the last 8 line-up. Last year's runners-up, Dolphin, play Swale, beaten semi-finalists, Dorchester play Handy Cross, past winners St Neots tackle Norfolk, while past winners Lincoln face Harrogate, who are still living the dream after beating Aycliffe. The Denny Plate quarter-final line-up is Cotswolds against Moonfleet 2000, White Oak play Victory, Welford-on-Avon play Ipswich, and Come on Orton as they take on South Forest. In the mixed top club, holders Swale take on Egham, Blackpool Newton Hall play Spalding, St Neot play either Acle or Kingsthorpe, while Victoria and Exonia will go head to head. News from the Scottish National Championships: 7 finals have been completed. A repeat of last year's ladies singles final, it was a case of Groundhog Day for East Fife's Lindstein as she was beaten 21-10 by Treverdale's Julie Forrest. This was Forrest's 8th singles win. Junior singles, Auchinleck's Dawn Anderson beat Gary Ox Carla Banks 21-14. The ladies' 2-ball pairs title went to Abbeyview's Gemma Forrester and Lynn Lees, who defeated Gary Ox, Angela and Clara Banks 13-1, 9-5. Men's final, Tariff's Connor Milne came back from 13-10 down against Midlothian's Colin Walker to run out a 21-13 winner. This was Walker's 3rd loss in the final. In the 2-ball pairs, Paisley's Jamie Corrigan and David Horn defeated Tweedbank's Ben McGregor and Ross Nichol on a tiebreaker. In the junior singles, Glasgow's Stephen Lowry defeated Prestwick's Darren Weir 21-16. This was Weir's 3rd loss in a row in the final. And finally, in the under-18 singles, East Lothian's Aaron Betts came back from 17-10 down against Prestwick's Ross Goldstone to run out a 21-20 winner. There has been more action in the open singles circuit. In the Dolphin event, Dorchester's Martin Puckett landed his 3rd OSC success of the season when he beat Eggham's Barry Jenkins. Meanwhile, the Spalding event was a home win for Graham Smith, who beat York's Jack Bird. The win moves Smith up to 11th. And just a reminder, the top 32 ranked players are invited to the Grand Finals weekend in November. And that sound signifies we've lost another national champion. This time it's in the under-25 inter-club David Cornwall 2-ring triples. Holders Swale were beaten 39-31 by Oyster. The 70th Women's Home International Series takes place at Glenaithley in March. Holders England will be looking to notch up a 39th success, and they have made 2 changes to last season's winning team, with recalls for Welford-on-Avon's Amy Walters and Swales and Alicia Dunham. The last 3 times the series has been held at Llanelli, Scotland have landed the title. On the back of that, they have made 3 changes. 3 new caps, Colleen Cowie, Gemma Forrester and Lynn Lees, while there's a recall for Carla Banks. If the hosts Wales are looking for a Norman, the last time they won the series was in 1988, and yes, it was at Llanelli. The Welsh selectors have made 2 recalls, Earlswood's Laura Daniels and Radnorshire's Paula Summerfield. Meanwhile, Ireland have made 6 new caps and 2 recalls. The new caps are County Antrim's Gemma McLean, Zoe Minnis, Laura Reaney and Claire Montgomery, Belfast's Paula Montgomery and Ballybrake's Shauna O'Neill, while the 2 recalls are Belfast's Catherine Beattie and County Antrim's Debbie Sidwell. The Women's Under-25 International Series lands up at Arbroath for the 3rd time early February. The last time it was played at Arbroath, England won it, and they have also won the last 2 series. Out of the 16 played so far, England have won 14 and Scotland have won 2. The England team has 3 new caps and a recall. The new caps are Huntington's Jasmine Wilson, White Oak's Olivia Moulton, St Neots Robin Hall, and the recall is for Egerton Park's Alice Phillimore. Scotland have 4 new caps, East Lothian's Beth Reaver, Glasgow's Ariana Moat, Abbeyview's Cara Lees and Prestwick's Rachel Houston. The Wales team has 2 new caps and 1 recall. Katie Dickinson and Shannon Davis are the new caps, while the recall for Port Talbot's Jasmine Stanton. Finally, the Ireland have 4 new caps, Belfast's Laura Cassels, Chloe Wilson, Bethany Whittle and Ballybrake's Emma Bruce. Best of luck to all the new caps and just go on and enjoy yourselves. The EIBA are trialling some summer nationals. They include a men's singles, women's singles, open pairs, open triples, plus they already have the Fantastic Fives running. The closing date for entries is the 31st of January and it will be interesting to see the take-up of entries. There are a couple of open days taking place. White Knight are holding theirs on January the 12th and you will be given a warm welcome from club manager Andy Napper. Meanwhile, Darlington have a try bowls and have a pint on us open day on January the 25th between 12 and 4. And finally, just when I thought I was done, Bowls England have announced their 2020 World Championship squad, which has been held at Gold Coast, Australia in May. The women's squad is Ellen Faulkner, Sian Honor, Lorraine Cooler, Catherine Rednall and Sophie Tolshard, while the men's team is Nikki Brett, Robert Paxton, Sam Tolshard, Jamie Walker and Andrew Napper. You know, Davey, the lad's never looked back since we gave him that podcast interview, plus he's won the Boxing Day competition. It just shows you, mate. And after that lot, I'm going for a lie down. Now it's time to catch up with Craig Burgess.
Hi David.
Hello Craig, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yourself?
Not too bad at all, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on to the Wrong Bias podcast, really appreciate it.
No problem, my pleasure.
I was supposed to be playing in a competition of yours this weekend, Craig, so I thought it was a great opportunity to have a discussion about short mat bowls, which I'm sure a lot of people either A, may not know about, but also we're really conscious of the fact that we don't want to be continually talking about the long mat game indoors and outdoors all of the time. This sport's got a lot of formats, and yours, I'm always impressed with what I see, so I thought it was a great opportunity for you to have a discussion with us, give us an understanding of the short mat players tour and give everybody who's listening just an idea of what the participation levels are, where you actually travel to, etc., if that's okay with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, it'd be great.
Just for starters, Craig, for those who don't know about the short mat game, I thought it would be good just to give a little bit of a dummy guide as to what the short mat format is of the sport, the makeup, and obviously just the general rules and the balls that you use.
Yeah, sure. So we play on a carpet that is 6 foot wide, 45 foot long. We use exactly the same bowls as what you would use indoors on the flat green long mats, both indoor and outdoor. Again, all different variations of bowls that people use. People like playing with straight bowls, people like playing with bowls that with a bit more bias in them. It's predominantly played in the UK, although we are seeing more countries, because of the ease of being able to get the carpets down on a hard floor, more countries taking it up, which is great to see. But it originally started with two South African players who moved over to the UK back in the 1940s, I believe, and then moved to Ireland, and actually that's where it started, and the first association was formed over in Ireland, so back in the 1960s.
Fantastic, and obviously similar to what we have locally, certainly in my area, which is carpet boards. You have a similar thing where you've got a barrier in the middle of the carpet as well, haven't you?
Yeah, a block, or as they call it in Ireland, a stick is in the middle. It's 15 or 18 inches wide, so it just stops players from going straight up the middle. Although you will see with some of the videos from some of our events, some of the top players are able to still play weighted shots on there by sort of using their feet more, and you have to deliver the ball within a delivery area, or your feet have to be in that delivery area, but your arms can be outside of that.
That's right. And that's one thing. That's one thing that I think I will call it the SMPT, which is obviously the Short Mat Players Tour. I think that's been really, really good, because for anybody who is listening who hasn't seen the SMPT, I would highly recommend you go onto the Facebook page and like the SMPT page, because I've watched quite a few of your tournaments. It's a great sight to see so many carpets, and predominantly I'm right in thinking you play a lot of them in a lot of the indoor bowling centres. Is that right, Craig?
Yeah, the indoor bowling clubs tend to be very well set up for our type of events. They cater for bowlers, and they cater for the sort of numbers that we can bring to their venues. So yeah, we play predominantly in bowling clubs where we can in the UK, and obviously when we go to other countries where they don't have that, we try and play a venue that can sort of meet the needs that we have. But as long as the floor's mostly flat, we can play in there. And
what's the sort of number of carpets that you actually have down for one of your major competitions?
So for the event we've got coming up this weekend, the 30 Mat Bowls British Open, we've got 33 mats down, which is our standard now for our ranking singles events. The most we've ever had down is 49, which was last year at the World Masters, which is our sort of season-ending event in Belfast. But yes, it's come a long way since we started out with 12 mats and 48 players in our first ever event.
Without a doubt, and thinking of 30, 30 odd or 40 odd even, 45-foot short mats in a venue, it must just look tremendous. And what sort of numbers, Craig, are we talking about with regards to firstly the Short Mat Players Tour that you have, and it is a fantastic ranking system where players are obviously working their way up through the rankings through various points that you've got in your competitions. So I'm imagining you've got quite a lot of people on that tour, but also have you got an idea of how many people play nationally the Short Mat format?
Yeah, so in terms of our events, the event this weekend, we've got 192 players taking part from 13 different countries. This season alone, we've had 433 different players take part in the first three events that we've had. And in terms of the world rankings, we've got 757 players currently in the world rankings. So that's players that have played in the last 12 events.
That's amazing.
Which is quite a fair number of people that have played. And the national governing body in England is the English Short Mat Bowling Association. I believe their membership's around about 17,000 currently.
Tremendous. And it's so what's been your sort of involvement with the SMPT since it started? Did you actually create the tour, Craig?
Yeah, so I actually took a bit of a break so I played short mat when I first started bowling back in sort of the mid-90s. I took a break in the early 2000s after playing indoors, actually, and trying my hand at trying to get on TV with the PBA and World Bowls Tour, and actually thought this was something that short mat needed, was something of that kind of nature, a more professional side to the short mat game. So, just sort of taking that idea and that concept and looking at other sports I'm a sports nut, so looking at other sports and what works in other sports, what doesn't, and joined together with sort of a friend of mine, Simon Pridham, and then a couple of other guys came along as well fairly soon afterwards. It was about 2011 we started the Players Tour, and it's just rocketed from there really. We moved from our first venue at Way Valley, which had a short match section for those that have been there before and that have seen that short match section at the back of Way Valley. We went to Bromsgrove, was our next venue, and again we outgrew Bromsgrove within our sort of 3-4 seasons there, and we're now, our home venue is at Falcon in Chelmsford, which hosted the International Series indoors last March, which was a success. So great venue there. It's my home club as well, so I know it very well.
It's a really nice club, Craig. I was really impressed last season when it was the first time I'd been down there, and it was a really good setup. Yeah,
it's a good club. They've got a good leadership there, good membership, and I mean for us as well, having somewhere where it's quite close for a lot of the players. We get a lot of players from Europe coming over as well, so it's quite handy for Stansted and for the other airports, for London airports. It's quite good for us as well.
Brilliant. And what's, give us a few of the countries who actually participate in your tournament?
England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland are the obvious ones. Isle of Man, Belgium, Sweden, Holland, Norway. We've had individual players that have played from representing players such as Denmark, Portugal, Spain. We've got a few players that come over from Spain. I think it's around 20 countries we've had all in all that have been represented since we started, which is pretty good.
It's amazing, yeah. It's really, really good, and it doesn't have, again, we've just been talking about the promotion of the sport, and you just can't do any better than and getting the word out and getting people participating from so many countries. So what's sort of the format, and how does your ranking system, how does it work?
So you'll get drawn. We video all of our draws so all the players can see their names coming out the hat. We try and add a little bit of razzmatazz around that, just to, again, adds to the sort of drama, I guess, around the event. So we do that about a week, or release that a week or two before the actual event itself. All players will be drawn into a group of 6 players. So you'll play 4 of your 5 group games on the Saturday. You'll then come back on the Sunday, play your last group game, and then wherever you finish in your group, if you finish in the top 2, you go off and you'll play in the cup competition, and that's where the majority of the ranking points are up for grabs and the prize money. The next 2 players finishing 3rd and 4th will go into the plate competition. Again, there's still ranking points available in there, and then the bottom 2 players finishing 5th and 6th will go off into the shield competition. So again, there's always something to play for, and you're guaranteed 6 matches. And you mentioned about the ranking points there. So we've got a world ranking system. It's quite complicated in terms of the amount of points that you get, etc. All the explanations on our website about how that works. But we would also have an order of merit, which is just for the season. So that's another good thing that we've added in the last few years. And we've got a World Cup that is based upon the order of merit rankings as well. So the top 4 players from each country in the order of merit will be invited to come and play for their country in the World Cup, and that's really proven to be a success as well over the last sort of 4 or 5 years that we've been doing that.
Amazing. And I've got to say, I'm really, really, astounded by how good the ranking system is and how good the setup is, and I think a lot of the formats in Bowes would really learn a lot from actually having a look at what you do, because it is really, really impressive, and I take my hat off to you, Craig, for what you've actually created. So with regards to the future of short mat, where do you see it going in the future? Do you see it getting bigger and bigger, or are you going to introduce more tournaments in the future?
I think in terms of where I would like to see the sport go, it's the one format of bowls that's easy to get anywhere. So I'd love to be able to see more countries get involved, and that being the starting point for a lot of countries to get started. Yeah. So I know Sweden are now looking at potentially having an actual indoor club, but that's only come from having the short mat there originally, and they've been doing that for about 10 years now. So I think trying to get the word out there to more countries, more people involved in trying to play short mat as well. I do see little pockets of it in other countries, such as South Africa. Love to see it take off in Australia, which is obviously, as you know, is a massive bowls nation. Yeah. And New Zealand, I know, play they call indoor bias bowls, which is on it's more like the carpet bowls. But again, just seeing the amount of numbers that play that there, then short mat would be a great fit, I'm sure, down in New Zealand and down in the Southern Hemisphere in general.
I have seen that in New Zealand.
So that's where I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I've seen that in New Zealand. I think they don't have a barrier or anything, and the carpets are quite short as well. Am I thinking of the right one?
Oh, yeah. We've had a couple of players actually come over from New Zealand and take part in our events who play that and very good at that format as well. So that's always been good. So yeah, I'd love to see that kind of thing take off, short mat take off in those countries as well. Fantastic.
No, that's really, really good. And I know when I'd first mentioned to Richie that I was we've been having a chat and that you were going to come on. I think Richie held his hands up and didn't know a great deal about short mat. So not just Richie, but I think a lot of people listening as well probably don't even know, half of this even exists. And I think to have something so professional and with so many countries involved, I think I really genuinely believe that a lot of people really need to have a look at it. And from my development background, I'm forever in every club that I go to. If there's potential there, I'm always saying, look, try where you can to try and introduce things like carpet bowls or short mat into your club, because like you've said, it's so accessible. But just being able to get a potential club involved within a club, so to speak, indoors, not only does it bring something different to the club, but it also brings a new audience to the sport and potentially new members to the club as well. So I'm always trying to drive that, to try and get people to obviously think of the other formats that are available for the sport of bowls.
And I think that's another key thing as well. I know Falcon have got a short mat club there now, and that's going from strength to strength. So yeah, absolutely. Where we're seeing short mat clubs or indoor clubs being more open and having the ability to have short mats sort of come into their club. I mean, it's tailor made for it. The mats can lay down on top of the indoor surface without causing any problems whatsoever. And it's a good revenue as well for the indoor clubs, which I know it's at a point where membership's not probably at its best.
Without a doubt.
At most indoor clubs, so it's another way of getting added revenue as well.
Without a doubt, and I've got to say, I am really disappointed. It was going to be my first tournament. I've got to give a little mention to Ed Sawbridge, who I know you'll know very well. Is he currently still world number one, or has he dropped down?
No, he's currently topping the world record. Just come back into a number one spot after the last event, so he's just narrowly in front of Mark Beattie, who's sort of come back into some rich vein of form. So yeah, it'll be a good tussle up in York next weekend to see who stays number one after that event. Great
stuff. And I've done a couple of events with Ed, just on a development basis down in and around his area, down in Northampton and Daventry. And I've got to say, he's a great ambassador for the short mat game. Such a nice lad. And we did have a little bit of a match on one of the club's short mat carpets, and I give him a little bit to worry about, I must admit, even though it was my first time. But the quality shone through in the end, and he managed to pip us in the end. But he's a great lad, and I will be attempting to try and get down. And I would recommend anybody. This broadcast will go out just before the tournament down in York, and it's the York and District Indoor Bowling Club it's held at, isn't it, Craig?
That's right. Yeah. So we'll be there on the both days, Saturday and Sunday, which is the 11th and 12th of January. Games will start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be finishing at 7 p.m. on the Saturday, and the final's scheduled to be played at 7 o'clock on the Sunday.
Fantastic. And if there is anybody in the area, then I would certainly recommend popping in to obviously watch the tournament and see what it's all about. I think you'll be quite impressed by the whole setup. And for those who don't, we will be putting links, and we'll put your website link on there as well, Craig, on our Facebook page and Twitter page, etc., just to give people an opportunity to have a look and possibly watch some of the short matches that are going to be on your TV or your streaming carpet down at York, which I think will be great, and hopefully boost your audience as well while we're on. But no, thanks very much, Craig. That's, like I say, a real insight into something that, like I say, I've tried and I've really enjoyed. I do look forward to potentially entering one of your competitions in the future, if not a few more. But I think what you're doing is great, and I think we need to understand that we're in this we should be helping each other. We're not fighting against each other, and I think all of the formats can actually help each other to promote this sport and actually grow our membership as well. So, just quickly moving on, Craig. I'm just going to run through my 7-up questions with yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I've tried to tailor it a little bit to the short mat game, but I've got a couple of little questions in there, which are ones that are quite relevant to the podcast. So, if you're okay to start, number 1 is, which is your favourite stadium or venue for short mat?
Belfast, just for the size. Belfast Indoor Bowls Club.
Great stuff.
A lot of the indoor bowls will know that as well.
And what balls do you use on the short mat?
I use Hallmark Commander.
Hallmark Commander, that's a new one. Actually, Hallmark Commander, I think I started with Hallmark Clubmaster when I first started. Number 3.
Yeah, an old set of bowls.
Yeah, Cadbury or Galaxy chocolate?
Galaxy.
Best short mat play you've ever seen? There's a one.
Probably say in England, Stephen McAllister.
Great stuff. Greatest achievement for yourself in short mat?
Probably winning the national singles. The same season we won the team event for the first time since '92 for England. So that's probably my best.
Great stuff.
Best achievement.
Would you rather be too warm or too cold?
Too warm.
And who do you think will win this year's World Indoor Bowling Championships?
God, Paul Foster.
Craig, thank you so much. You've been absolutely fantastic, and like I say, I'm sure Richie's had his eyes opened as to what the short mat's all about now. It's been a great insight, and once again, I do recommend everybody to have a watch and potentially maybe look to get a try of short mat at some point and see what it's all about. So thanks so much for coming on, Craig.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. And it's competition time. So, again, we've mentioned the World Indoor Championships, so we thought we'd relate the competition to the World Indoor Championships, and thanks to Alex Marshall Sports for their support. The competition question for this one is going to be, who will win the World Championship singles this year? Now, we imagine there is going to be a lot of people with the same guess. So, as a little bit of a side one for potential tiebreaker, what we're also going to ask is who will win the women's indoor singles as well. That's the World Indoor Singles. So, if you can give us 2 answers, either via our email address wrong.bias@hotmail.com or via the Facebook page or via Twitter, register your answers, and basically if we get to a point where 2 people have got exactly the same 2 answers and that is the result, then we will do another little bit of a tiebreaker. But I would also like to congratulate Andy Napper, who won our Christmas competition, and I thought he was absolutely tremendous in the fact that he actually tied with Scott Baker, and he agreed to let Scott have the England top. That was part of the prize, which I thought was great. And we also provided them both with some wrong bias merchandise as well. So all details of the competition prize will be on the Facebook page, and once you've listened to the podcast, please drop us your answers.
Well, mate, there's another show over. Hopefully not our swan song.
Yeah, well, we've got one more to go after this one, so 7's the word.
Yeah, well, as it's Potters coming up in the back end of the month, we'll put our heads on the block, mate. Come on, name names.
Well, we've already had a couple of guesses from our guests, haven't we? So Dom went for Stuart Anderson, Craig went for Paul Foster, I believe, didn't he, for the singles? I'm going to go for a Mr. Dawes win again.
Mark Dawes for Davey Bolt. I'm going to take the hint from Mr. Marshall, who actually said his favourite venue was Potters, and he hasn't won it since 2015. So Alex, no pressure, son. Me 50 pence is on you.
So that's the singles. That's Alex for you and Mark Dawes for me.
Yeah.
For the women's, who we're going to go for? I'm going to go for one of our previous guests. I'm going to stick my neck on the line. If she performs the way she can, I think Devon Cooper's got a huge chance.
Yeah. Well, I'm going for another new name, Nicole Rogers. I seen her in the Open Singles circuit the other week, and I was really impressed with that. So I'm going for a new name on the block. She's in the right half of the draw.
Good call. 2 young girls as well, so it'll be great to see. Our next one, who we're going for? We're going for the mixed. I'm going to go for Paul Foster, Julie Forrest.
Paul Foster, and I'm going for Nikki Brett and Marion Purcell of Wales to Toledo.
They play each other in the first round, so that's one of
It's a fight!
And for the World Indoor Pairs, I'm going to go for what's potentially an outsider. I'm going to go for some of the non-ranked players. I'm going to go for Daniel Salmon and Damien Doubler.
Good one, mate. And I'm going to go for Mr. Chesney and Mr. Dawes. to relight the fire.
So there's our ideas. The competition is to try and guess the World Championship winner and the Women's World Championship winner. So if you've got any sense, you'll ignore us and pick somebody completely different. Great show again. Really enjoyed talking to both Dom and Craig. I really enjoyed the chat about the short mat balls. I am a big fan.
And I will admit to my ignorance, thinking that carpet balls and the short mat were the same thing, and I didn't realise that it was 10 foot longer.
That's right, and I think it would be good if one of the future shows we maybe get somebody from the carpet balls along as well, because I think a lot of people would be quite surprised how many people actually participate in that. And it just begs the question, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who actually play balls, and it's not just necessarily outdoor balls and indoor balls. There are so many formats, and like I say, it begs the question. We all work together, it's a much bigger audience and a lot more footfall than what it is if we work individually. So great stuff. Yep, thoroughly enjoyed.
Good, and if this is our last show,
thank you very much.
This is a good night from me.
Please listen and hear us at the 300 or 400 again, and we'll do another one. Thank you for listening, and hope you've enjoyed the show.
This has been a Dodgy production.